renaixentismes arreu, en totes les disciplines, en tots els països s'intenta renombrar i buscar un significat, un sentit nou a les experiències tal i com les estaven desenvolupant, experimentant, sentint.
So what I'm proposing is that the word modernism, it can apply to personal or collective attempts to renew the nomos. And this is not just my idea. This approach is at the basis of a wonderful book, Rites of Spring, by a Finnish Canadian called Modernist Extremistes. And he makes a big historical leap. In 1913 in Paris was the first performance of Stravinsky's Sacre du Printemps.
En 1913 a París, Stravinsky,
the first performance of Sacre du Printemps, which is the modernist music, and it is a dance which embodies the sacrifice of a human being, a woman, to create the spring.
En l'obra de Stravinsky hi ha el sacrifici d'una dona per tal de donar lloc al naixement de la primavera.
It caused a tremendous anger in the people, in the Parisian public.
El públic parisenc es va irritar moltíssim.
He argues in this book that the First World War, in which so many young people died for their country, for their nation, for God and country, was the same impulse to find renewal, spring, through death.
Es fa una comparació entre aquest sacrifici de Stravinsky amb el sacrifici a escala molt mundial de la Primera Guerra Mundial i s'interpreta com un sacrifici de molta gent pel naixement d'una nova primavera al món.
This was a collective ritual suicide.
Va ser un ritual de suïcidi col·lectiu.
And he calls it the Great War and the birth of the modern age.
La Guerra Mundial i el naixement de l'era moderna.
And this is what I try to explore in this book, Modernism and Fascism, where I try to show in this book that fascism is not born of reaction against socialism. True fascism, radical fascism, is an attempt to create a different sort of nation with a different sort of human being, to bring about an anthropological revolution.
Ell sosté que el feixisme en realitat no és un concepte que neixi d'una oposició, d'un antagonisme amb el socialisme, sinó que l'autèntic feixisme és un intent clar de renaixement.
An attempt to renomize the world, renomitar.
Sí, només com nomos. És un intent de tornar a dotar el món d'aquesta cobertura de sentit, sota la qual els homes entenen el significat de la seva existència.
And I distinguish between two types of modernism. Epiphanic modernism, where the artist tries to find a revelation of a more beautiful world, a higher reality or a deeper reality. Epiphanic modernism.
Sí, dic que hi ha dos tipus de modernisme, un epifànic, que seria més inspirat, revelat, en el que l'home és capaç de captar un significat més profund del superficial.
And programmatic modernism, and this is what interests me, when an artist or a political thinker or an activist tries to create a new style to inspire a new civilization. You see this in Gropius's Bauhaus, and you see it in a very different way in Gaudi. This was not just art. This was an attempt to create a different sort of society. This is not just the private world of Van Gogh. This is a public transformation of the spirit.
Sí, aleshores el segon tipus de modernisme seria el d'aquells artistes capaços no només d'inspirar-se, sinó també de visionar una nova manera, un nou tipus de món, que no era possible fins a aquell moment.
And now when we come back to fascism, we can see that things like anarchism, anarcho-syndicalism and falangismo are actually inspired by the same sort of impulse to create a new spiritual world as you get in modernist art.
Ell interpreta l'anarquisme, l'anarcosindicalisme i el falangisme com que neixen del mateix anhel espiritual de regenerar la vida.
And in this period, philosophers like Nietzsche or Unamuno were not just interested in thinking, they were interested in the state of humankind. They wanted to create a new world of spirit. It was not just thinking, it was changing.
Sí, filòsofs com Nietzsche o Unamuno no estaven interessats només en una manera de pensar, sinó en canviar realment l'esperit de la humanitat, no pensaments, no l'espiritualitat mateixa.
Now, when a political state is inspired by a modernist attempt to change the world or change society, you get totalitarianism. Pure totalitarianism wants to use the power of the state to create a new type of humanity, a new type of world.
Els estats totalitaris tenen la intenció d'utilitzar
The power of the state,
el poder de l'Estat per transformar
l'humanitat.
l'humanitat.
And this man, wonderful man, Zygmunt Bauman, talks about a gardening state, a state that sees its function as creating a new garden out of humanity. And you can see this impulse in Nazism, in fascism, and in the Bolshevik state, and in the Maoist state. There, the destruction they create is the collateral damage, the side product of an attempt to create a new world.
Zygmunt Bauman parla de l'estat jardiner, que alhora que està creant un nou estat, alhora està destruint un estat anterior.
In other words, real totalitarianism, real fascism is palingenetical. It wants to create a new world. If it has no palingenesis, it is not really fascist, it is not really totalitarian, it is authoritarian.
Perquè sigui feixisme ha d'haver-hi el component de palingenèsia, de renaixement, de voluntat de néixer un altre cop. Si no hi ha aquesta voluntat, seria totalitarisme, però no seria feixisme.
Well, it becomes just authoritarian without totalitarian. And here are two, that's that Bauman book, and there's a very good book there about totalitarianism. So, fascism is not just reactionary, it is not just destructive, it is trying to be a revolution. It uses the past to create a new future.
El feixisme no és una reacció, com ha argumentat fins ara, sinó que és una autèntica revolució. Utilitza el passat per crear un nou futur.
So if you take a speech like this of Primo de Rivera, and this is the son of Miguel, you can actually see, I'll forget that, yeah. If you look at the language, this is the language of fascism, because his movement is not just about restoring Catholicism, restoring the past. He says specifically, and you don't have to translate this, isn't that good? It's all in the mind, its spirit, its soul, its atmosphere, it's poetry, it's politics as art, politics as poetry, politics as moving out of an old Spain into a new Spain. And I mean, if you read that bit there, for example. Okay, so So that is my argument about fascism. That the Spanish have been mistaught that Franco was a fascist. Franco was never a fascist. Franco was an authoritarian dictator who used fascism to create an illusion of dynamism. And then when it was convenient, and he knew that Hitler and Mussolini would lose the war, he dropped fascism, became a personal dictator. He never wanted an anthropological revolution.
Sosté que Franco en realitat no va ser feixista, sinó que va usar el feixisme com una manera de dinamitzar la seva política, però que ell no passa de ser una persona autoritària que quan el feixisme va perdre el protagonisme a Europa, ell va esdevenir simplement una figura autoritària.
Now, this is very short. Since that book, I then turned my attention to terrorism, and I have been able to show in all the terrorisms I have researched the same basic impulse.
Ara parlarà més de la idea de terrorisme i destacarà aquells tipus de terrorisme on hi havia un mateix tipus d'impuls.
Every case of terrorism you examine, whether it's individual terrorism, Breivik, or collective terrorism, Islamism, 9/11, Al-Qaeda, there is a burning desire for gnosis, not knowledge, not understanding, not theory, but a blend of action and total knowledge, total certainty. Each terrorist creates a world divided into good and bad, and he or she puts him or herself in the good to act against the bad. And in their own little world, they are restoring beauty, truth, spirit, meaning to the world.
El terrorisme, tant el terrorisme que es comet de forma individual com el terrorisme més de comunitat, la figura terrorista divideix el món entre bo i dolent i ell es col·loca a la part de món bo que intenta anar en contra la part dolenta en la idea que té al cap de gnosis, de coneixement certer, absolut, revelat, inqüestionable, que és el que fa que ell pretengui aquesta...
He becomes a cosmic warrior.
És un guerrer còsmic. Esdevé un guerrer còsmic.
That, by the way, I must say, the important thing about this cover, I designed it with my son, who is 13 years old. You can see the influence of Assassin's Creed and of war games, video war games. But the important thing about the drawing is that he is holding a book. And the book could be any book. It could be a book on animal rights, it could be a book on Catalan history. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. But the terrorist feels, like in the film Avatar, you've seen the film Avatar. Outside the terrorism, the terrorist has no legs. He is a cripple, he is handicapped. Within the terrorist avatar, he becomes powerful. He is fighting this cosmic battle against evil. That is why he will kill and even be killed for a sacred cause which gives his life meaning, even if he dies. Because human beings need meaning more than they need life.
Bé, ha parlat de la coberta del llibre, de la qual ha volgut destacar que el terrorista en si porta un llibre a les mans. Aquest llibre podria ser qualsevol llibre, podria parlar de com domesticar cavalls o podria parlar de la història de Catalunya, però el que importa és que el terrorista en si se sent amb la necessitat de tenir un pensament, d'entregar-se a aquest pensament. Ha fet un paral·lelisme amb la pel·lícula Avatar, que el personatge a la vida real té una mica de rodes, però en canvi en la seva projecció d'Avatar ell pot ser aquest guerrer còsmic que lluita contra el mal.
There are two types of terrorism. There's terrorism which defends a nomos, defends a homeland. The Tamil Tigers, ETA terrorists, IRA terrorists. You are defending your sacred land. Jewish terrorists fighting for their new homeland. Or you are creating the basis for a new world. So you have anarchists, you have McVeigh, you have Breivik, who want a new future. But both, whether they put the sacred as something to defend or something to create, they are driven by the need for a nomos.
Que hi ha dos tipus de terrorisme, un terrorisme que s'encarrega de defendre una terra o un nomos, i un terrorisme que el que busca és crear un món nou, millor, en el que viure, però que tots dos el que tenen en comú és la necessitat d'un nomos.
And if you want to understand the psychological mechanism of this, there are two fantastic films I would ask you to see or re-see. And one is Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver is no translation, Taxi Driver.
And Fight Club. Who has seen Fight Club? In Taxi Driver, a man comes back from the Gulf War. He is not a hero. He is in New York. He is desperate. He is lonely.
Taxi Driver, un antic combatent de la guerra del Golf, torna a Nova York i allà es troba que no és ningú.
Vietnam, I beg your pardon, Vietnam. McVeigh came back from the Gulf War. Travis comes back from the... Very similar parallels, by the way. Dirt. Scum and filth. It's like an open sewer, cloaca. You know that word? I can hardly take it. Some days I go out and smell it, then I get headaches that just stay and never go away. We need a president that would clean up this whole mess, flush it out. What does he do when he is disappointed by the politics and by the woman?
Pregunta què fa el protagonista quan està decebut per l'actuació del president i de la dona.
He does a mohawk haircut, he buys guns, you're looking at me, you're looking at you. He becomes an avatar, he becomes a heroic double, and he has a mission, and he will kill the scum, and he finds a symbolic target, and these are the pimps that run Jodie Foster, and he kills them all, and then he kills himself, but the gun is empty. He has become an extreme missionary warrior fighting his own battle for a better world. It is a brilliant study of the transition from the impotence of a lonely man, which is the theme of the film, and the transformation, the transfiguration into a terrorist.
Diu que la pel·lícula Taxi Driver li agrada com a exemple que és un gran estudi de com passar d'un home solitari i com es va transformant cap a un perfecte terrorista, passant, sent un autèntic guerrer de la seva pròpia guerra entre el bé i el mal.
And in Fight Club you have the same pattern, much more complex. It starts with the destruction of the tallest building in New York, which will fall onto the Museum of History, and Project Mayhem, and it is an incredible film. But we will not lose more time, I must finish. But a real case study is Anders Breivik. No, just tell them to see Fight Club, okay? We know enough about Breivik. he was another loner. He looked at websites, he traveled, but he was another loner.